you would probably get just a handful of people that would be on that list. A lot of people would say Hank Williams Sr. A lot of people would say Jimmy Rogers.
It was an unusually candid moment in the world of country music. Vince Gill, widely regarded as one of the genre's most affable and diplomatic figures, shocked both fans and fellow musicians when he publicly revealed the 5 music artists he disliked the most. Known for his velvety tenor voice and his elegant guitar playing, Gill had cultivated an image over decades as a laid-back, respectful artist who rarely, if ever, spoke ill of others in the industry. So when he chose to drop such a bombshell, eyebrows rose across the music world. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The setting was intimate yet charged, an interview that was supposed to center around his recent creative projects, collaborations, and reflections on a career that spans more than 4 decades. But somewhere in the middle, after the conversation turned toward the evolution of the music industry and the growing disillusionment among older artists with modern trends, Gill took a sharp turn. Without warning or provocation, he listed without hesitation 5 names, artists he described simply as those he never could stand. There was no preamble, no attempt to soften the blow. It was a rare moment of unfiltered honesty in a profession where diplomacy is often expected, if not demanded. The revelation sent ripples through Nashville and beyond. These were not obscure or niche names. Every artist he mentioned was a high-profile figure, either from the country realm or closely adjacent. Some had long shared award stages with Gill. Others had crossed paths with him in collaborative efforts or industry panels. What made the moment particularly jarring was the clarity and directness with which Gill spoke. There was no humor, no irony, no attempt to frame the comments as tongue-in-cheek. It was clear that this wasn't a publicity stunt or a calculated maneuver to draw attention. This was Vince Gill, the soft-spoken legend, saying something he had held inside for years, perhaps decades. The implications of his statement were immediate. Media outlets that typically reported on chart movements and upcoming tours now had something far juicier to latch onto. Commentators began dissecting his choices, speculating about the motivations behind them. Were these personal grudges? Artistic disagreements? Moral or ethical conflicts? Every angle was explored, yet Gill offered no further explanation. He left the names hanging in the air like smoke from a long, smoldering fire, refusing to clarify or expand. The ambiguity only fueled the fervor. For those who had followed his career closely, the outburst, if it could be called that, marked a significant departure from his usual demeanor. Vince Gill had always been seen as something of a peacemaker in the country music world. During moments of controversy or division, he was often the one urging unity, temperance, and understanding. His role as an elder statesman was well earned, so to hear him cast aside that mantle even briefly raised questions about what might have triggered the change. Observers pointed out that Gill, like many veteran musicians, had grown increasingly vocal in recent years about the direction of modern country music. He had expressed discomfort with the genre's shift toward pop sensibilities and its departure from storytelling traditions. While he never directly linked his comments to that broader dissatisfaction, the connection was hard to ignore. Perhaps these 5 artists, in his mind, embodied what he saw as a deviation from the heart of country music. Or maybe it was something more personal. A long-forgotten snub, a broken promise, an act of betrayal. In an industry rife with behind-the-scenes drama, the list could easily have roots in events the public would never fully grasp. The artists he named reacted, or didn't react, in strikingly different ways. Some chose to ignore the statement entirely, refusing to acknowledge it in interviews or on social media. This silence was likely strategic, a way of avoiding escalation. Others issued carefully worded responses that neither confirmed nor denied a feud, hinting at creative differences or respecting everyone's opinion. Still, the tension was palpable. Even without direct rebuttals, the music community could feel the shift. Green rooms, award shows, and festivals would never quite feel the same again. Gill's own fan base found itself divided. Many applauded his candor, praising him for speaking his mind in an industry where so much is sanitized. They saw it as a refreshing departure from the norm, a burst of authenticity in a sea of carefully curated personas. These supporters argued that someone of Gill's stature had earned the right to call it like he saw it. Others, however, were dismayed. They had admired Gill not just for his talent, but for his graciousness, his ability to rise above the pettiness that often plagues fame. For them, the moment felt like a fall from grace, a dent in the armor of an otherwise unimpeachable legacy. Industry insiders were even more rattled. The hierarchy of country music is built in part on unspoken codes, mutual respect, public solidarity, and the careful avoidance of overt criticism. Gill's breach of that etiquette signaled a potential unraveling of those unwritten rules. If someone as revered as he was willing to speak out, what might that inspire or provoke in others? Would younger artists feel emboldened to air their own grievances? Would the industry become more fractured, more tribal, more openly antagonistic? Some speculated that Gill's comments reflected a deeper cultural shift. In a world where authenticity is increasingly valued over polish, perhaps his decision to name names was not a moment of bitterness, but of courage, a stand against hypocrisy, a reckoning with the idea that not all colleagues are worthy of reverence. From that perspective, Gill's honesty could be seen not as a rupture, but as a realignment, a demand for truth in an environment long governed by facades. But the consequences were not just philosophical, there were practical implications as well. Future collaborations, especially on projects involving multiple artists, tributes, benefit concerts, cross-genre initiatives, were now fraught with uncertainty. Organizers would have to consider Gill's presence carefully, weighing the potential friction his comments might introduce. Artists who had once looked up to him might now hesitate before aligning themselves too closely. The rift wasn't just emotional, it was logistical. Music journalists, meanwhile, had a field day. Analyses poured in, examining each of the 5 named artists and their history with Gill. Some uncovered past interviews in which subtle jabs had been exchanged. Others dug into liner notes and production credits, searching for connections or patterns. Every photo of Gill standing beside one of the named artists at a past event was suddenly recontextualized. What had seemed like cordiality at the time now took on a new suspicious tone. The industry's collective memory was suddenly being rewritten in real time. What stood out most, however, was the manner in which Gill delivered the list. There was no performance to it, no visible glee in dropping these names. He spoke not with anger, but with resignation. It was the tone of someone who had long made peace with his feelings, who had no desire to convince anyone else, but simply wanted to unburden himself. That quiet resolve made the moment all the more powerful. It wasn't a lashing out, it was a statement of fact. Still, it forced a reckoning, not just for those on the receiving end of his disdain, but for the genre as a whole. Country music, despite its image of unity and tradition, has always been a battleground of tastes, values, and egos. Beneath the surface lies a web of rivalries, clashing visions, and unspoken resentments. Gill's revelation peeled back that veneer, reminding everyone that even the most revered figures carry grudges, and even the most respectful voices have their limits. His decision also opened up broader conversations about legacy and accountability. Can someone be a legend and still be deeply critical of their peers? Can respect for an artist's talent coexist with disdain for their character or choices? These are questions that have long simmered in creative circles, but rarely make their way into public view. Gill's comments forced those questions to the forefront, where they could no longer be ignored. For aspiring musicians and industry hopefuls, the episode was a sobering lesson. It underscored the idea that success and acclaim do not guarantee immunity from conflict, that behind the glittering facade of fame lies a complicated tapestry of relationships, and not all of them are friendly. In fact, some are downright hostile. Gill's candor served as a reminder that the path to musical greatness is often strewn with personal tension and professional disillusionment. For older fans who had followed his career since the 1980s and 90s, the moment held a different kind of weight. It was a signal that even the icons they grew up idolizing are not static figures. They evolve, they grow weary, they make bold, sometimes uncomfortable choices. And while those choices may clash with the image fans have built over decades, they are part of a more complex and human story. Interestingly, the controversy also revived interest in Gill's body of work. In the days following the statement, streaming numbers for his albums saw a noticeable uptick. People returned to his songs looking for hidden meanings, potential references, maybe even subtle digs they hadn't noticed before. His lyrics were reevaluated, his old performances replayed with a new lens, It was as if his entire career had suddenly gained another dimension, one tinted with defiance. The silence that followed his admission was just as impactful. He did not offer clarification, nor did he attempt to soften the blow. He made no appearances on talk shows, refused interviews about the incident, and continued with his scheduled performances as if nothing had happened. That stoic refusal to backtrack lent the moment even more gravity. It was clear that Gill had said what he felt needed to be said, and he had no interest in rehashing it. In a world obsessed with second takes and public apologies, his stillness was almost radical. As the dust began to settle, what lingered wasn't so much the names themselves, but the fact that they had been spoken at all. It was a crack in the mythology of musical harmony, a reminder that artistry doesn't require universal affection, that the stage, for all its glow and applause, can also be a lonely, contentious place. Vince Gill, long seen as a pillar of grace, had reminded everyone that truth often comes with sharp edges, and in doing so, he altered not just how people saw him, but how they saw the genre he helped build. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us. What are your thoughts on Vince Gill's picks? Who do you think he'll name? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.